Shalom. Yeah, I was actually at Walmart earlier, and like I said, I can't tell what a person is thinking, so I won't say nothing like that. But based on what I've learned and what I know, based on scripture and based on living, based on what I'm learning in their own laws, sometimes you have to take heed to what people say. So, I've advertised before, or at least shown you before, that my intent is to discharge all debt associated with the United States, because all debt belongs to the United States. So, based on that fact, that all debt belongs to the United States, and they filed bankruptcy in 1933, that means they're operating in a de facto status. And because they use fiat currency, that automatically made men and women, true Americans, the creditors over that de facto. So basically the United States company is, and this is information, this is just for informational purposes, this is not something that I'm creating and coming out of my mind. It's something you can look up yourself. As I told you before, you can look up on the internet, books. So this is not nothing top secret. This is just a regular information that anybody can find out if you look. So because that happened, and because man and woman is now has always been the creditor, but now because they did that, the United States company, U.S. company, has basically fallen to the status of a mere private corporation, but actually in bad faith status, because it has no real money, and we'll get into that. So, because it has no real money, let me see why. Because it has, looking at the time, I'm trying to find the right link, because I printed something I needed, but okay. Because it has no real money, it operates in fiat currency. We'll get into that as well. All men and women, Americans, true Americans, the jure Americans, state capital, small s. Some people say citizen, some people just say state, and in my case, I'm a Californian. In my proper capacity. So, being in my proper capacity, and I'm the creditor, that means I can discharge debt. And that is my intent, as I showed you before. I have good faith intent, so I use the stamp to say that I give them authorization to discharge that fiat note, that debt note, and inflation note, to do my part to cancel my part of inflation. So I'm doing my part to stop the inflation by authorizing the United States company to set off and discharge that debt. Okay, let me go ahead and start off with what is good faith? Sometimes legally binding due diligence around the effort made, information given, or transaction done honestly, objectively, with no deliberate intent to defraud the other party. Yet, this does not cover the sin of omission. Sometimes something done or not done in negligence, known also as bona fide, implied by law into commercial contracts. What is bona fides? Good faith, integrity of dealing, honesty, sincerity. The opposite of mala fides, or of dolus molus. This is the Law Dictionary, Volume 2, by the way, second edition. What is bad faith? The opposite of good faith, generally applying or involving actual or constructive fraud, or designed to mislead or deceive another, or neglect or refusal to fulfill some duty or some contractual obligation, not prompted by an honest mistake as to one's rights or duties, but by some interested or sinister motive. And then it goes on into a bunch of case laws: Hilgenberg versus Northrop, Morden versus Immigration Association, Coleman versus Billings, Lewis versus Holmes, Harris versus Harris, Penn Moot L Insurance Company versus Trust Company, Insurance Company versus Edwards, etc. Then it says, there's a scripture that came to my mind. Genesis 3:1-3. And now speaking, like I said, when people speak to you, a lot of times they're being subtle and with a motive behind it, but they're with a smile, so you kind of, sometimes you might miss it. But it's a message behind their madness. Genesis 3:1-3. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which Yah had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, has Yah said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree. See, this is, she has a conversation in her own head. That's that beast nature she's talking to. That one that come up in your mind that gets you to do things. You know, once you take heed, you're biting that apple, so to speak. You're biting that thought. You're taking heed to it, and you're considering it. And then finally, once it has its way, it produces sin because you go on and act on it. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Yah has said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. So he gave you the fruits to eat, called the fruit of the Spirit. But she went on and ate and then start producing the works of the flesh. Luke 4:6-8. And the devil said unto him, talking about Yahusha, All this power will I give thee, and the glory of them. For that is delivered unto me, and to the whomsoever I give it to. If thou therefore wilt worship me, and shall be thine, and all, if thou therefore wilt worship me, all shall be thine. And Yahusha answered and said unto him, Get thee behind me, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship Yah, the mighty sovereign, the great king, and him shalt thou serve. See, those are two answers to that same serpent. Eve pondered on it, ate it, it became a good idea to her, and then she gave that idea to Adam, and then Adam, like most men, don't want no problem with the woman. She said, okay, baby, let's go ahead and do it. Alright. Now, background, 1933, the bankruptcy of the United States. 1933 was a year of major events in America. During this year, constitutional money, gold, which is Yah's money, became outlawed, and effectively all property of America became mortgaged and held in the trust for the Federal Reserve Bank as collateral for the nation debt. See, that's actually what they were talking about, deception, fraud. That really did never exist. That never really happened. Because the United States, I believe, is the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, which says you should buy nothing, you should not be able to buy or sell anything except for gold or silver coin. They took away gold and silver coin, so now they took Yah's money and then gave you their paper. So basically, and I'm not accusing anybody of nothing, I'm just saying, if you put two and two together, they stole Yah's money. Because he says the gold and the silver and the gold is his. So they stole his money and gave you their paper. That's fraud. The truth should set you free. So I'm not lying, I'm telling the truth. It's right there. Now if I was lying, I would have to repent to him, but I'm not lying. For the Federal Reserve Bank as collateral for nation debt. All of this was done without the full knowledge or consent of the American people. This was the year that the government instituted the creation of all capital letter strawman names via the newly required birth certificate for American citizens, thus creating a whole new class of persons as debtor slaves. And basically, if you research the clear fear doctrine, that's what I'm talking about. The government fell from the place of sovereignty and fell to even fell lower than the place of a private company, because it's not even in good standing. It's basically none and void now. So it's just a bunch of people getting together and saying, well, let's tell them this, and if they go for it, we're going to ride with On June 5th, 1933, the United States Congress passed House Joint Resolution 192, which served as a declaration of bankruptcy. And then once a country, not a country, but now this United States company, corporation, filed bankruptcy using fiat currency, it's no longer sovereign. It has no authority over it, other than what you agree. And the fact that they've not told you good, you've given you full disclosure of what they have done to you, all of those contracts are null and void. Or in any particular form would now be against public policy. At the same time, President Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102 forbidding the hoarding of gold coins, gold bullion, and certificates. With this executive order, Roosevelt ordered that most of the gold in the curriculum be turned into Federal Reserve Bank across the nation under the threat of fines and 10 years imprisonment. What the leaders at that time failed to disclose was that with the confiscation of What the leaders of that time failed to disclose was that the confiscation of all gold money, and property that was all Americans, spelled in proper case, that made all Americans spelled in proper case creditors to the U.S. bankruptcy. Because of the passage of H.R. 192, it was now illegal for Americans to pay for anything. Gold was traded for Federal Reserve notes and indebtedness, which made paying for anything impossible as notes of debt do not pay for anything but delay the payment until a later date. What the government offered instead of gold was credit, but they offered it to the bank, not the people. But see, but in reality, you are the bank. So that's why they get you to sign things, because if they could just do anything without you, they wouldn't need you. That's why they say, would you sign here? You don't. The men and women in their proper capacity is what makes everything happen. And also, I want to apologize to you, if you're a targeted individual, powerful individual, because I'm very observant of people doing things like coughing and sneezing and that wasn't even my intent. But like I said, I really, I did cough or whatever that was, but that was just something blew in my throat, so I had nothing to do with that. So I'm just being sensitive to those who watch those type of things as I do. So I apologize to you for that. Alright, so I'll go ahead and move to the next video.